There is a moment in every great story where silence becomes louder than anything that has ever been said out loud, where the absence of a single word, a single frame, a single confirmation tells you more than 1,000 announcements ever could. We are living inside that moment right now. And if you have been paying attention to this story, you already feel it in your gut. Something has gone wrong with the most important automotive project on the internet. Not mechanically wrong, not creatively wrong, something far deeper and far more unsettling than a technical problem. Something that reaches into the very foundation of what Mat Armstrong spent years building, what the independent repair movement has been fighting for, and what it actually means to challenge one of the most powerful and strategically sophisticated luxury brands in the world. What you are about to hear is not gossip. It is not speculation manufactured for clicks. It is the result of thousands of sharp, careful viewers watching the same evidence accumulate in real time, drawing the same conclusion, and arriving at a theory so structurally sound and so ruthlessly logical that dismissing it requires far more creative effort than simply believing it. Mat Armstrong's Sunday video did not drop. 7 million people waited. They refreshed, they waited again, and they got nothing. In a world where content creators live and die by consistency, where missing a single scheduled upload can fracture a fan base built across years of trust, the absence was not just unusual, it was alarming in a very specific way. 2 days after the silence, a community post appeared. It was short. It was carefully worded in a way that creators almost never write when the reason for a delay is simply technical. Mat described the video as a monster, something too important to rush, something that had grown beyond what he expected when he started. He offered no new date, no teaser image, no behind-the-scenes footage, no reassurance in the form of any concrete detail whatsoever. Just 5 words at the end of the post that carry more weight than anything else he has published in recent memory. I'll keep you all posted. Read those words again and let them settle. That is not the language of a creator managing a production delay. That is not someone waiting on a file to render. That is the language of a man waiting for something that is not within his own control to give. Something that belongs to someone else entirely. Something he may not be permitted to say out loud. To understand why the community reacted with the intensity it did, you need to understand who Mat Armstrong is, and what this rebuild actually represents in the larger picture of the automotive world. Mat is not a typical mechanic content creator. He is the person who methodically dismantled Bugatti's maintenance mythology, one video at a time, using nothing more than publicly available parts pricing and a willingness to do the research on camera that no automotive journalist or industry publication had ever been willing to do at scale. He cross-referenced their service costs against real supplier pricing. He documented the numbers that Bugatti's customer relations team would rather never existed in searchable form. He did all of it with calm, technical precision, without manufactured drama, without exaggeration, and without any financial incentive to reach a particular conclusion. He let the figures speak, and the figures were devastating. Bugatti owners, people who had written the largest checks of their lives to join an exclusive mechanical ecosystem, were suddenly watching a mechanic on YouTube demonstrate that the ecosystem they had paid to join was built on margins so extreme they bordered on something no one in the luxury space wants to say out loud. That is the context. That is why this particular video, this specific upload, is not just content. It is a document that challenges the business model of a billion-euro brand. And billion-euro brands do not accept that kind of challenge quietly. The man who made this entire project possible was Alex Gonzalez, a collector of genuine significance inside the hypercar world. Not someone who owns one interesting car, but someone who exists deep within the private architecture of ultra-exclusive automotive culture. A world that runs entirely on relationships, allocations, factory access, and the unwritten hierarchy of who gets the phone call when a new limited model is announced. Alex chose to hand Mat the keys to a wrecked Chiron and let the cameras document everything. He became more than a client in this story. He became a symbol of what it looks like when a collector decides that transparency matters more than the brand relationship. He was the person who gave the independent movement its most powerful validation. And that is exactly why his silence right now is so heavy. The community began noticing things before the missing video, slowly, gradually, in the way that patterns only become visible when you have watched every single upload rather than just the recent ones. Alex Gonzalez, who had been present and visible in the early stages of this rebuild, began disappearing from the narrative. Fewer appearances, fewer direct contributions to the story being told. The partnership that had been the emotional core of this project started feeling increasingly absent without ever being formally acknowledged as absent. This is not the kind of detail a casual viewer would catch after 1 or 2 videos. This is the kind of thing that only registers after sustained attention, the kind of attention this particular community has been paying for months. Then the video did not arrive. Then the word monster appeared in a post that offered nothing concrete. And then came the detail that makes the theory impossible to dismiss with a simple wave of the hand. Alex Gonzalez said nothing. Not a reply to Mat's post. Not a photograph of the car on his own account. Not a short video from his phone. Not even a single sentence confirming that the project is still alive and that nothing has changed between them. And here is why that specific silence is so significant. Alex is not Mat. Alex is not bound by whatever contractual or legal framework might be keeping Mat quiet. Alex could film a 30-second clip right now, stand next to the Chiron, and say 2 simple sentences. The rebuild is continuing. Mat and I are still working together. That is all. The theory collapses. The community moves on. The project continues without the shadow it is currently operating under. He has not done that. And every additional day he does not do it, the absence becomes its own kind of statement. To understand why Bugatti is at the center of the theory the community has constructed, you need to understand how this brand has historically operated. Bugatti is not a standard car company. It is not even a standard luxury car company. It is a closed and carefully managed ecosystem with a well-documented pattern of treating its vehicles as objects that the factory continues to hold authority over long after they have been sold. There are stories inside collector circles, stories that are well known to people who inhabit that world, of Bugatti applying quiet but effective pressure when owners made decisions the brand found inconvenient. Allocation access being quietly extended or quietly withdrawn depending on demonstrated loyalty. Legal frameworks being used not because anything illegal occurred, but because the threat of legal complexity alone is enough to change behavior in very expensive directions. This is not an accusation. This is a pattern that exists in the public record and in the private knowledge of everyone who has spent serious time inside the hypercar collecting world. The theory does not suggest Bugatti threatened Alex in any crude or obvious way. Crude threats are for companies that have nothing more sophisticated available to them. The theory suggests that Bugatti approached Alex the way Bugatti always approaches people inside its orbit, with the language of access and exclusivity and belonging, with a frame that makes the ask feel like a privilege rather than a demand. Alex, the car deserves a factory restoration. Protect its value. Protect your position inside this world. And quietly, almost as a secondary thought, there is a new allocation, very limited. Most collectors will never receive the call, but for someone who handles this well, who makes the right decision here, a spot at the front of that list is available. That is not a threat. That is the most elegant form of pressure available to a brand that has spent decades perfecting the art of making compliance feel like reward. And the question millions of viewers are now asking is whether Alex Gonzalez, faced with that exact conversation, held the line or did not. Mat, if the theory is correct, is legally unable to tell you any of this. If Alex has withdrawn permission for the footage, the video cannot be released. If there is any form of agreement in place, speaking publicly about the real nature of the delay creates legal exposure Mat cannot afford. He cannot even hint at it without handing lawyers something actionable. So he uses one word, carefully chosen, and leaves it in place. Monster. And the community reads it exactly as it was meant to be read. Not as a boast about the scale of the video, as a signal from a man inside a situation the cage itself will not allow him to describe. There are exactly 2 ways this resolves. The weight of public attention becomes too great for Alex to continue absorbing without consequence. He relents. And the most important independent automotive document ever produced reaches the audience it was built for. Or the silence continues, the uncertainty calcifies, and the most anticipated rebuild in the history of automotive content becomes an unfinished story that quietly disappears from the conversation, while Bugatti reclaims control of its own narrative without ever having to say a single word in public. One of those outcomes represents everything the independent movement is built on. The other sends a message to every specialist working with high-value clients that no matter how skilled you are, no matter how transparent you are, no matter how many millions of people are watching you work, the factory can always reach through you and turn the client against you with a single well-placed phone call. The algorithm will not decide which of these endings arrives. The community will. And the community is watching every single second of it.